You almost
Record.
forget how to.
There we
There it
go.
There it
is.
is. He
There it
remembers.
is. Wait, what episode are we on? 18?
18.
Yes,
Season 2?
18.
18. All
Season
right.
2, 18.
Hey, welcome
Start
to the
over. One, two,
WKN
three.
podcast. Well, wait a minute, Sylvia. Thank you very much. I love you, babe. Yeah. Hey, welcome to the WKN podcast where Sylvia likes to interrupt. These are our
I
hosts.
can't help it. Sophia.
Stacy.
Dustin.
And I'm Thomas. And our great special guest is
Art Geahr.
Art Geahr, the man, the myth,
Welcome.
the legend.
The legend.
The
Yep,
legend.
there he is.
Damn.
Diesel.
Again, I don't understand how we keep convincing these people to come on.
I know.
Like,
They love us.
I know.
They love us.
Or they just don't, they haven't watched, so they have no idea.
Yeah. They think they love us, and then they get on the podcast.
Until after the
They're like,
podcast, they're like,
"Hey."
well, I don't know about. Well,
Like, I'm never
Sylvia,
talking to those guys again.
I don't
Sylvia,
know.
there goes all your spare parts. There goes all your spare parts.
I talked in another one today to come on the podcast. So
Oh, good.
I
Yeah, I'm gonna
know.
plan that one.
I know.
So, I know I had a very, very busy weekend, both Saturday and Sunday.
Yep.
How about everybody else?
I had a busy Friday because I was at Geahr Offroad for a little bit.
Yeah,
Yep.
you were picking up some
stealing,
goods.
stealing parts.
Stealing trash.
Not stealing if I'm passing them off to you.
Yeah.
So Art was stealing them and handing them off to Sylvia.
Yeah.
That's right.
There you go.
I was dumpster
Or
diving.
repurposing. That's it. That's the
I was
word.
dumpster
Repurposing.
diving at Art's place with all of his broken, broken parts.
We have a never-ending scrap pile. We empty it out, it fills back up again, so it doesn't end. It's
Do you have someone that comes and pick that up for you, or do you?
well, we actually
take it
just had
somewhere?
normally we take it. It's an old military M105 trailer, and we fill that thing up, and we take it it's about 2 miles from here over to a recycling place. But we had a guy recently that came by and emptied it out. He came to us, so.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm okay with that too. So it's more out of necessity than it is
Sure.
to try and make. Scrap is so up and down. We don't try to make money off of it. It's just we've got to get rid of the stuff, So
No kidding.
and
I had a bunch from when we stripped off the axles and did a couple lifts, and it was 880 pounds that I loaded in the back of the Nissan Armada.
yeah.
It was squatting pretty good. I took it over there. I got like $80 and some change.
Let's see,
for it.
$10. $10.
But you know what?
Right.
At least it was
Dang,
out
that
of our
was-
driveway.
Yeah. Like, I don't even know if that was worth it.
Yeah.
That was definitely a lot of time. That was a lot of
But
time.
if they would have came to us, that would have been even better than us having to load it
I know.
up.
Then we might have got like $40 for it, and then I didn't have to do nothing.
But yeah, so Art had all the cool stuff because they do so many gears over. That's what you're doing, right? Axles and gears is where I got most of those parts.
Yes, yeah, we do a lot of that scrap pile, as you saw, fills up pretty quickly with steering control arms, steering and suspension parts.
Yeah.
And then a lot of ring and pinions.
And camshafts. There was quite a few camshafts.
Camshafts. Yeah, we do a lot of so there's a lot of metal parts.
Yeah.
And then
It was perfect.
We don't throw away anything metal. So the only thing we throw away into trash cans is trash. So everything metal goes into that scrap pile. And but it's useful sometimes, for
Oh yeah.
so sometimes we have to save stuff to show a customer, an insurance company. Sometimes maybe we just showing somebody, okay, if you neglect this is what happens, So so we save it for a while, and then ultimately you have to get rid of it. So we used to save used gears, but it's just not I'd get some people every once in a while that want a used 373 for a TJ or something, but it just doesn't happen anymore. So I've got some back there if we need to make a repair on something, but we prefer to put, usually if something goes bad like that, you're replacing more than just something used.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, because some of those gears have pretty big chunks taken out of them.
Then we get the damaged ones too. Yeah. So we do a lot of re-gears, and we also do a lot of repairs where somebody's gotten a little too heavy on the wound pals, and they take chunks out like you saw. And then a lot of re-gears. So there's just it adds up pretty fast.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
bet. I bet. So,
So yeah,
Stacy.
so we got lots of
Oh,
new trophies coming. So very excited for the
yes.
next couple events.
Yep, we do. Stacy. So, how eventful was your weekend? And you had some fun today. Today is Monday, so
All I did was work.
that's not all you do.
That's all I
Okay,
did was
most of the
work
time.
all weekend.
Yeah, you were working this weekend, but
I did.
today,
I worked.
yeah, but I called you on my lunch break, and you're like, I'm having a major emergency right now, and
Oh my
let's.
gosh.
Huh.
When a $22,000 machine decides to fry itself,
It went.
poof.
Thanks.
When
What
you
kind of
gotta
machine
pull a
was that?
shot, our Mastrena. Yeah,
Espresso machine,
yeah.
Starbucks espresso machine.
$22,000 for an espresso machine? That seems a little
You
ridiculous.
should bring it to Art and
That's a
he could
little
fix it.
excessive.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. All
Yeah.
weekend we've been fighting with plugs and
I mean,
for over
Walmart
a
probably
week.
sells those for like $100.
Probably. Yeah.
Just saying.
Just run a bunch of K cups in there.
Yeah.
Starbucks K cups.
Well, for whatever reason, they've got 3 plugs daisy chained together with 3 of our most expensive equipment in Starbucks hooked together. So you got our nitro machine, our espresso machine, and our so the nitro machine actually infuses the nitro into the kegs, which is in another machine, in our Joe keg or Joe tap, and they're all 3 in different plugs, but all 3 plugs are daisy chained together,
They're
and
all in the
they
same
keep
circuit.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and they're all in the same bracket. So all last week, this one plug, GFI plug, kept tripping, and I kept telling maintenance it's tripping, like something's wrong. And she kept going, no, no, it's fine, it's fine. I was like, no, there's a reason it's tripping, like something's going wrong. And she's ignoring me. And this weekend, like as soon as you'd plug it, I would unplug it, reset the GFI, plug it back in, it would trip. Well, today, finally, before the espresso machine blew up, we would unplug it, hit it, and it's the very first plug on this daisy chain. I would unplug it, hit it, and it would immediately trip again. Well, I just gave up. I was like, I'm not even touching it no more. And it was about an hour later, they pulled an espresso shot and it was poof. I was like, oh shit. We in
Nice.
trouble now. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
That was her eventful, fun day and joys of being a great Starbucks Target employee.
yeah. So
Yeah. Well, this weekend for me was really busy on Saturday. Went over to Eric and Jennifer Warner's house and their big Taj Mahal garage that they have now, and changed out a
Well,
water
they've always
pump.
had the Taj
Yeah,
Mahal
they've always
garage.
had it, but it's paved and it's got a
It's
lift in it.
better now. Yeah.
It's a lot better.
got
It's
a
real
floor.
nice. It's got a paved floor in it. It's got a lift in it, but his Jeep is on it. So we were working, helping. Dustin was there. Scotty showed up. David, Michael, Stacy showed up eventually, and of course Jennifer and Eric, and working on Eric's on his lift, and then on mine we were stripping it apart to put a water pump. Found out it was actually the thermostat housing that was leaking. So we went ahead and replaced the thermostat housing. Since I already had the water pump, I've got 122,000 miles on it now. So I was like, since we're in it, let's just go ahead and replace that too, just to get it out of the way. And then was that was all yeah, that's all we did on mine on Saturday. Was that yeah. But it literally all day. Oh, and then we changed the LEDs or the halogens on Scotty's and put the LEDs headlights, factory headlights in his.
We also did your spark plugs on
Oh yeah, we did
Saturday.
spark plugs too. Yes. We definitely did those too. So yeah. That and it literally took all day. Um yeah, and then I realized how old I am and crawling on the floor and crawling over engines and stuff. I'm a little more sore. And then on Sunday we changed my axles out, my front axle shafts out for the Spicer chromoly shafts, and that took every bit of the day. The what was it? The passenger side axle nut did not want to come off. It said, "I'm staying here. I've been here for a long time, and I'm not coming off." So we hosed it down with WD-40 and PB Blast. Jumped on the driver's side. Everything zipped off real quick on the driver's side. Went back to the passenger side, and luckily it just barely hit it on the gun, and it came loose. So that worked out. But I think it took us about 4 or 5 hours to do that. I think it was about 6 or 7 when I left Eric's. But we had some downtime in between there, going back and forth with Eric's. Dominic was there and Scotty. It was just us four plus Jennifer, or us three plus Jennifer.
Sunday.
So
Did they get the rear control arms and stuff on Eric's?
they got the bracket on. Dominic helped him with the bracket, and Eric said, "Hey, don't focus on mine. We'll get this bracket on. I'll have Dominic help me with this bracket, and then he said, let's focus on yours. You have more stuff that you need to do on yours." He said, "I can get my control arms on. I just need additional help with holding that bracket on, so he could get those bolted down." But him and Dominic did that while I was taking my front end apart, so I could do the axle shafts. But yeah, that was my eventful weekend, and I was definitely tired and sore this morning. I was like, crawling on the floor is not fun. I need a bigger garage so I can put a lift in it. So yeah, what was your weekend like, Art?
Well, we're recovering from. I worked on my one of my M38s, the old military Jeeps. We're kind of getting back from. We were in Daytona last week for Jeep Beach, so we're still kind of recovering from that.
Stacy was jealous. Stacy was definitely jealous.
This is my first. It was my first time there. It was really. I'm glad we went. It was a good. And I probably normally wouldn't have gone. Just to go, but Rock Jock asked us to come down, bring the Gladiator, so we did. And hanging out a week with Max Dollinger is always a good week. So.
Mhm.
Sure. So we had a good week. Drove back Sunday and just kind of getting back in the groove. From being
Awesome.
through the wonders of remote PC, I can kind of keep an eye on the business stuff, and we have really good employees, so they keep everything turning. So
Nice.
It's good to have people you can trust to keep it going.
Oh yeah,
it is.
for sure.
Yeah. They do. None of us are perfect. They do a pretty good job, though. They do a pretty good job keeping things going.
That's good that you can
You're always
step
just a
away.
phone call away.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
and they know, they can ask if something gets, a lot of times they know what I'm going to say, so I just say, they just think, what would I do if I was here? And then if they get something really weird, through the wonders of cell phones and cameras, you can see what's going on anywhere. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, so speaking of shops, Art, so what exactly do you do? Tell us a quick little spill about yourself, and then
we
what your
do a
where you
little
work.
bit. We do on the shop part. We do a little bit of everything. We didn't start off as an off-road shop. We started off as just a general auto repair shop. But like what usually happens, I had a Jeep. I went off-road, and I'd start working. Somebody I knew had a Jeep. They wanted me to fix something for them. That snowballs. Next thing you know, you're a Jeep shop. That's
Yeah.
over a number of years. That's kind of the way it happened. So we do a little bit of everything here. We don't do any painting other than spray painting. I'm Michelangelo with a spray can, but we don't do any professional painting. But everything from a check engine light. Again, we come from a general repair background, so adding the fabrication is a little easier if you know how things work to begin with. So we'll do everything from a check engine light, the dreaded lifters, sometimes a cam, lifters and rockers on the 3.6s, to a regear, to a mid-arm kit, a long arm kit, whatever it takes. We have another shop also that we spun off because I kind of felt bad when we started to make the decision about being only a Jeep shop. all the Ford Tauruses and Toyota Corollas that were my customers before, I kind of felt bad about, sending them away. So we have another shop about 2 miles from here that takes care of all of those.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
But I mean, I've been a mechanic for, I joined the Army when I was 17. Spent 3 years in a Jeep, an M151 on a Stinger team. Got out, started working on cars in 1987. The exception of I took a little break for about 4 years, joined the Marine Corps. Wasn't done with the military yet. But even in the Marine Corps, I kept current. I was one of the most popular Marines at the Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort Auto Hobby Shop. So and it was just like you guys do, like you just talked about. You go over a buddy's house and you're going to start working on stuff. That's one of my favorite atmospheres is a garage. Thomas's garage, Dustin's garage, just going over there. I've spent the better part of my life hanging out in garages.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff happens there. So,
what's your shop called?
it's Geahr Offroad.
Okay.
This one is called Geahr Offroad. The other shop is we didn't change the name when we bought it. It was Allison Lane Auto Care. It still is, so we won't change that one.
Gotcha.
We also have a third shop that is more of it's an overflow shop. It's about 2 miles the other direction, where we do. It's kind of an overflow with storage. It's also where Vet Built Garage is, and we'll touch on that here in a second. But it's occasionally we'll get an old CJ that they take a while to do. Maybe we're waiting on parts or doing maybe a semi restoration or some carburetor work, and rather than have it here taking up space, some of these old CJs are pretty nice. It's a pretty good neighborhood where we're at, but we don't want to just leave stuff in the parking lot that's nice like that. So we'll ship them over there and work on them when we can. So.
And your parking lot's not really that big. It's pretty small.
Not that big. No, it's not. We have the American Legion across the street is kind sometimes when we get a little overflowish. They let us flow over there, and they do the same thing on. They have some bingo nights and stuff where they get pretty rocking over there, and they'll park in our lot. So
nice. That's
we
good
live together. Yeah.
So when you opened in '87, was it called Geahr Offroad then, or did you rename it when you started to do?
No, we didn't start here in '87. I started in '87. I worked for a little tune-up shop in Folsom, Pennsylvania, on McDade Boulevard. I'm originally from Philadelphia. I grew up in Philadelphia, so
Awesome.
I worked in a little. I was born in Philadelphia. We moved to the suburbs, and that's where I spent the better part of my life until up until the Army, and then after the Army. I didn't move here till 2002. But I worked at dealerships, little repair shops. Mostly earlier in my career, mostly Chevrolet dealerships, which was a good thing because a lot of what we now know as OBD2 was based on the Chevrolet model. So I kind of had a little bit of a head start with a lot of the drivability stuff, which is, if I had to say I had a specialty throughout my automotive career, it was the drivability stuff. It was the stuff that I like to do. It was a lot of problem solving, and even to this day, sometimes we'll get somebody brings a Jeep here and they'll say that it's been at 5 different shops, and that gets me excited. I'm like, okay, I love a good problem,
Yeah.
solving a problem. So, but that's we didn't start here till we bought this shop in 2016. So
Okay.
we've been here since 16. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, that's crazy. I definitely thought just like how well, I don't know. I guess we didn't really get into Jeeps until what, 2022, 2021, whatever. But yeah, I'd heard
Well,
of
I bought mine in
Geahr,
21,
yeah, the whole
so
time.
and it's my first Jeep I'd ever bought too. So,
yeah, you've made a good name for yourself for sure around here.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing to see how that, Max and I will talk about this sometimes. It's interesting to see how, in the 80s and 90s, you had to really want a Jeep to be in a Jeep. Up until the TJ, you had everything was leaf springs, and they ride a certain way. So, really, for where we're at, a lot of people think that it was the JK that got us here. and it did to a certain extent. But the really it was the TJLJ was the catalyst that got us here, because that's the first one that started where you could get a Jeep. You bought an old CJ. You had to put lockers in it. You had to do if you wanted low gears, you had to change out transfer cases. The TJ Rubicon was ready to go. I mean, it rode good on it rode good
coil
on
springs.
coil springs,
Yep.
so it rode great. They had pretty decent radios in them. Then the TJ Rubicon comes along, and now you got factory lockers and a 4-to-1 transfer case. So that really changed things. And then you go to the LJ, which is probably my favorite Jeep. The LJ was a little bit longer, and then you roll into the 4-doors, and now everybody's interested. And sometimes people ask me, what is the best Jeep? And really, and I'm happy to say this, that it's the latest ones. The most capable. To build an LJ, I love them, but you've got to start with a lot of parts to get it to a certain level of performance. But a brand new Wrangler JL Rubicon is ready to go. We took one a couple of years ago out to came with us, and they did a lot of the trails in Colorado completely stock. They drug, but you wouldn't know that those horrible noises that were coming from underneath of it, that they were cringing as we're going over these things, and it's just dragging. I'm like, if we stop and I point it out to you, you'll be like, there's nothing there, because the skid plates are doing their job. So
it's just the type of metal that they use. It does that high pitched squeak.
Right. And Thomas can attest to this. That Gladiator, we have our shop Gladiator. That thing is a blast to wheel, because it's so long and so stable. It just rolls up everything. It's just a blast to drive. It's so stable, and you're just.
That's why we call them Carnival Cruise.
But with all the buttons and lockers and that off-road cruise control, it feels like you're cheating a little bit, because it just goes up everything. So
considering
you have an LJ too, don't you?
I do have an LJ. Yes, that's probably my. If I have I have 3 M38s, which an M38 is an old military vehicle. It's the last of the flat fenders. Kind of like if you see Thomas, that Jeep over his left shoulder. When the Jeeps first came out, we had the Willys, MB, and the GPWs.
You have to send us some photos, and we'll put them on here.
Yeah, the M38,
just send them to me, and I'll put them up.
The M38 was the last. They came out from 50 to 52. It was the last of the flat fenders. They kind of did everything. They kind of fixed a lot of the shortcomings on the World War II Jeeps. They boxed the frames a little better, had a better transmission. They moved the tools from the driver's side, where it was a pain in the butt to get into it, to the passenger side. So they made a lot of improvements to the 50 through 52 M38s. So I've got 3 of those. I've got a 50, a 51, and a 52.
Nice.
My LJ, the Gladiator. My wife Chrissy has a JK that we're actually getting ready to do a build on. Nice. So my daughter has a Jeep, which was a funny story. My daughter, when she turned driving age, we went out and bought her like a Chevy Cruze, and we're out driving in it, and she's getting used to the car, and but I know my daughter. I can tell. I'm like, do you like the car? And she's like, oh yeah, it's nice. I prodded a little bit more. I'm like, if you don't like it, tell me. And she said, I kind of wanted a Jeep. And I'm like, I probably should have saw that coming. But you don't want to put your stuff on your kids, so I didn't want to like buy her a Jeep and just assume she wanted one. But so she has a 2006 TJ, is what she wanted. So it's nice. Silver, matches mine. So that was kind of accidental, but it's kind of cool. But
that's fun.
It's pretty.
Yeah, neat. Savannah drives a Jeep. Well, she has a Nissan Versa. Her Jeep does not have air conditioning, and she hates being hot.
It's a 2003 TJ, and it's I think it's from Wisconsin or somewhere up north, and it didn't come with factory AC at all.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
And so it has like a block heater and transmission heater and all that stuff already built into it, but it doesn't know AC. And
we've seen some JKs. We've seen some JKs too from Canada that don't have air.
It's crazy.
the TJ is not terrible to do. You can add it.
Yeah.
But the JK, it's really
We
hard
did
to
talk
do.
about that, and then she's like, I don't know, because the kits are like $1,500 basically to put AC in, and she's like, I think I just want to get a different car. So we got her little Nissan Versa. It's like 30 miles a gallon. It has ice cold air, and
But as soon as
drives
Dustin drives the Jeep, as soon as
Yeah.
Dustin drives her little Jeep,
she likes
she's like,
driving it in
what
the
are you
fall
doing,
and-
Dad? Why are you
yeah,
driving my
in
Jeep?
in the winter, but then in the summer when it's 95 degrees outside, she's like, I'm gonna take the car now.
Well, she had a flat tire the other day, so I was like, "Well, just get in the Jeep and use that." Because I was actually I was down at Eric and Jennifer's, and so she took the Jeep and then she messaged me. She's like, "I forgot how much I love driving over curbs." She was like, I just like that I don't have to. I can just bounce over whatever I want.
Yeah,
that's true.
Dominic's definitely not going to follow us in the footsteps of Jeeps because he keeps saying, "I don't understand y'all's Jeep pronouns. I don't get it."
He calls them pronouns. Yeah,
he calls it pronouns. You're calling
no,
it
he's going
pronouns.
back to your teenage living years and getting a Mustang. So,
Ooh,
yeah.
good luck.
Watch those transmissions.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, we'll see.
My
We'll see how
Mustang's
many tickets
transmission
he's going to
didn't
end up
last
getting.
long.
He'll lose his license in about 6 months.
Is he buying Rich's Mustang?
Yeah,
that's the plan.
That's the plan. Yeah,
that's the plan.
I see
yeah,
it
Rich
all
found a
coming
place
together
to tune it, so it's going to be. It'll probably be out of commission for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then it'll be ready to go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll
so
see
we're
how
looking
this
we're
goes.
looking forward
He'll
to
probably
that.
have better luck with that one than
ours.
The majority. I'll just say the majority.
We will see.
Well, I get pulled over in the Kia, so.
Well, Stacy, when you're not paying
120,
attention,
yeah,
and you're
My lights weren't on. I was following Thomas.
How are you following me?
Thomas was already there, and he's like, "Look, Stacy got up to 120 mile an hour on the way."
No. We were going to pick up we were going to drop off the Kia to get the oil changed and some parts changed on it, and I get pulled over for my lights not being on. I was following Thomas in the Kia.
That's not when you were speeding, though.
I didn't get stopped.
But you were in Mexico.
I didn't get caught when I was doing that.
Exactly.
You were in Mexico speeding. Yeah.
No,
yeah, she followed me across, and then the back section of the neighborhood it's really a farm, kind of a short little distance of farmland, and it's pitch black, and I saw lights when she was driving behind me. So, and then we got up into town and getting ready to turn on 31, and I happened to look in my mirror. We're right by Radcliffe Police Department, so I saw a police car sitting there getting ready to pull out on the road anyway. And whenever I looked and saw him, I caught a glimpse in my mirror, and I was like, wait a minute, Stacy's, why are your headlights off? So I call her about the time he turns his lights on to pull her over because she doesn't have her headlights on. It was kind of funny.
They just went off by themselves.
Does it not have an auto headlight switch?
It does. Somehow it got turned off.
But I think it was the daytime running, because it has the fog lights on the front. And if the headlights are off, the fog lights stay on. So somehow it
got turned off.
Somehow it I don't know. Did
he actually write you a ticket, or did he let you off like a warning?
No, he let her go. That's
good.
He said, ma'am, you need to turn your lights on. She's like, I'm so sorry. My husband literally just called me.
My driver's license are always behind my military ID. So yeah, that usually helps. And Thomas was on the phone.
I was on the phone, and she's like, he's right there in the Gladiator. I stuck my hand out the window and waved.
He's like, I'm right here.
He was like, yeah, just turn your lights on. You're good. Just be safe. Turn your lights on.
Anyways, back to the story. Sorry, Art.
Sidebar. That's why these take 3 hours.
Yeah.
Side
now,
note.
In an old M38, you're not going to get a speeding ticket. That's those things. They're real happy at about 40, 45 miles an hour, and that's.
If anything, the only ticket you're going to get is driving too slow.
Yeah, you might get. Yeah, I stay away from highways on that. It's pretty vulnerable. So.
But you wheel one of those at least, right? Right now,
the one
out of your two that's running.
Lay down.
They're the three kind of happen by accident, but I just couldn't pass them up. But the one I had that I actually take off road, it's not so perfect, so it's a little dinged up. It's in pretty good shape. So that one I'm going to make. I have such a blast wheeling that thing because it's so pure. It doesn't have lockers. It doesn't have, much of anything. It's pretty, the way it came from Willie's. But it's very pure driving that because it's so small. You can look, I can just peek over. I can see everything on
everything.
the passenger side. It's a blast
cart.
to drive it. Yeah,
pretty much. It looks like a little golf cart, a big oversized golf cart.
They're starting to get popular. There's a we did a ride last year with a lot of guys that I think I was the only guy that wasn't an Ultra 4 racer in this group, but it's a group of guys that most of them are in Indiana, but they all have flat fenders. And we did a ride. I did about 100 miles, just kind of around Indiana, and I mean mostly paved and gravel roads, but it was a blast. So it's just a really good. I'm kind of every off-road shop, usually because of their owner, they all kind of have a feel to them, and I'm more of a Jeep purist. I like stuff the way Jeep, the way Jeep delivers stuff. I'm all about an LS swap, but when possible, I kind of like to keep it, kind of stock. So every shop has its flavor like that. Some guys like yanking everything Jeep out of it and starting over. Mm-hmm. But I kind of like keeping stuff, stock as much as possible because they are pretty capable the way they are.
Sure.
The LJ still has the other than the axle that has Curry axles, but it's the stock 4-liter NSG 376 speed and the 4-to-1 transfer case. So and up until recently, all the wheeling trips we've done out west, East Coast, I drive that thing. I've driven it across country. I couldn't tell you how many times. Mm-hmm. So we just really kind of started trailering a little bit. As we get older, it's kind of nice, but a lot of that, reminds me of being in the Army and living out of that Jeep I lived in the Army. We cooked off the manifold. I turned 18 in that Jeep. I was on a Stinger team, and we had to fill out these. It was like a report where we had to, determine in which direction our responsibility was going to be for air defense. So we had to fill out one. The other two teams had to fill out one, and I was filling out that form, and I turned to my crew chief and I said, "What's today's date?" I put my name, put his name. I said, "What's today's date?" And he told me the date, and I said, "It's my birthday." And he was eating an MRE, and he kind of went, "Happy birthday." I'm like, "Thanks." And that was it. That was my birthday, my 18th birthday. So
sounds about right.
Yeah, but you kind of, Thomas can attest to this. Everybody that joins the military, that they do it for maybe a bunch of reasons, but they all have one thing in common: is you have to have that sense of adventure, and be up for an adventure where you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, or the next week, or the next year, or the next 20 years, Thomas. So you have to be up for that adventure, and that's, Jeep people get that because we're always up for an adventure where we start off. I see in your videos, when you start off, you don't know what's going to happen that day, but rain, shine, snow, mud,
we're in it.
Yeah,
you're in it. We're going to make it happen. And unlike a lot of other, I've had motorcycles, I've had, nice cars. I was really into street racing in Philadelphia in the 80s. But the Jeep stuff, really, for the most part, if it's raining, we're going. If it starts snowing, well, we're here.
We're definitely going.
Yeah. The only thing I kind of get cautious about is wind, because it makes all those trees want to fall. But other than that, that's what gets us going, is that sense of adventure. And you can kind of see it I see it in your videos, I see it in everybody's videos. That's how you know you're having a good time.
Oh yeah.
Yep. For sure.
That was just like me. I used to race motorcycles, and then once I physically was then able to, I was like, I didn't know what to do next, vehicle wise, or what we could do. And then after we got the Gladiator and realized, holy crap, there's a lot you can do. And then we've been hooked ever since. And it's definitely been a money pit. Dustin loves those.
It's
Everything
good too because
is.
you see a lot of people in their a lot of the military vehicle clubs that I run with. There's guys in their 80s, and so that gives me hopefully
Yeah.
hopefully one day I'm one of those guys in their 80s.
Out
There'll
there.
probably come a day where I'm going to struggle getting in and out of that LJ, but
There's step stools and ladders for that.
there is, yeah. So one
Oh
of the
my gosh, if
reasons,
we get one of those old people like the chair lifts,
Like the
that'd be
wheelchair
so
lifts.
awesome.
yeah,
You said it like,
That'd be so awesome.
You're a hot mess.
yeah, I mean, people make
They
those,
make them.
they make hot rods that like turn out and they, set the seats down on the ground so you can get in and out of
Yeah.
your scooter and whatnot. Like,
Yeah,
you can
so
make it
no
happen.
excuses, Art. No
Yeah.
excuses.
There's none.
You can get in there.
We can fabricate something. Get it up on there.
you'll see a lot of guys that are they're older and they have trouble getting into the Jeep, like a lot of these Jeep jamborees we do and some of the other organized rides. When they're in, they're not coming out of that Jeep.
Yeah.
They get in the morning.
I'm
they
not
come
coming
for
out
lunch.
until it's time for bed. And then
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
they're not
I
getting
get
out
like
of
that. I get like that sometimes on the trail, like especially I had messed up my foot and my ankles, and they're like, "Why didn't you get out?" Because I could not keep getting in and out. Like there's no way. This is where I live for the day. If you need me,
This is
come to my window
This
because
is it.
I can't be jumping in and out. My foot says no.
Yeah. So, Art, let's go on to this next big thing that y'all just recently
Yeah.
started not too long ago. Vet Built Garage. Tell us a little bit about that because it's really interesting, and I love the concept and the idea, and how everything's going with it.
It starts. We kind of touched on it a little bit there. When people get out of the military, you go, and this happens in varying degrees. You get out, and that adventure is gone, or it appears that it's gone. I remember I even had that a little bit on active duty. I remember uh, being on an aircraft carrier, and to get to the aircraft carrier, I had to land on the aircraft carrier. You take the hook, and then they shot me back off, and then an hour later, this happened to me on active duty. An hour later, I was in the Marine Corps Exchange in Beaufort, South Carolina, picking up Pop Tarts. And I remember thinking, I was just on an aircraft carrier like an hour ago,
Yeah.
So even on active duty that happened, and here I am, picking out great Pop Tarts in the Marine Corps Exchange. But that happens when you get out, you miss that role that you had on active duty. So we go searching for something, and there's a lot of good programs out there, and Vet Built Garage is one of those. It started off as a Jeep program with another veterans organization, but they had some challenges that kind of forced us to go off on our own. So we started Vet Built Garage, and it's just a place for veterans to share, camaraderie and carburetors. We meet once a month. It's starting to get we're starting to ease into 2 times a month, where we'll do one monthly meeting, and then we'll do a class of some sort. We've had a winching class, we had an electrical class. So we'll have these classes just to teach auto repair. A lot of that stems from the older I get. I kind of tell people I've had 38 years of working on cars and trucks and Jeeps, and I don't want to die with all the stuff in my head. So you want to pass it off. I have employees I can teach them, but that's only a couple of them. So that's kind of my mechanical legacy is these guys and girls that work for me. But to share it with my fellow veterans is even better. So we meet, and we have Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and even some Coast Guard, and we'll meet and build Jeeps, build other projects. We called this new organization Vet Built Garage because we didn't want to be limited to just Jeeps. If something else came along, the garage part is what got us, because like you guys were talking about earlier, a lot of good things come out of garages. Microsoft was started in a garage. Apple computers was started in a garage. A garage is a place where guys and girls go to create things. As soon as Sylvia left here, she went to a garage and started welding things together. So it's garages are wonderful places. So we meet, and we're really we're off to a good start. We had to figure out how to start a 501c, in our case, a 19, which I didn't even know a 501c 19 existed. But it's similar to a 501c3, but it's catered more towards veterans and support for veterans. So our tax exempt status is still pending. We keep checking it every month. The IRS is working to get through the backlog of applications. So I think we're hoping by the early summer that we'll have our approval. So we're working on just I supported a lot with donations. And we're kind of self-funding ourselves right now until our 501c 19 comes in. But we're going to have one of the ways we're going to do that is we're having a car show at our location, which is the Vet Belt Garage is housed in a location that Geahr Offroad rents, and we just donate the extra space back to Vet Belt. We don't need an office, so all the office space is donated to Vet Belt to have our meetings. And through donations, we have pretty much a fully functioning kitchen over there now. We're getting a pretty good shop. We've had a 5-ton truck donated. We just picked up a trailer. We had a car donated that we're going to do a silent auction on. Nice. We've had a lot of donations, a lot of tools. People have been very generous to get this off the ground. So the car show is a lot of hard work that our members have put in. And it's mostly veteran members, but we have a lot of good behind every veteran is a spouse that keeps things going. So we have a lot 100%. Of spouses that keep us honest and keep the support going. So the car show is May 18th, Sunday, May 18th. Yep. We're going to have we'll have the usual. You guys, White Knuckle is going to show up and run the RTI ramp again for us. We really appreciate that. We're going to have some of the military groups are going to be there. We're going to create like a little military city with all the military groups. And I know we've got quite a few pre-registrations. So we'll have cars, Camaros, Chevelles, Chargers, the usual cars that show up. So this is our first one. So I think we're off to a pretty good start.
Yeah,
exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We can't wait. We got a ton of stuff going on the month of May, but we definitely made a specific block so that we can make sure that we were going to be able to attend your event for sure.
Yeah,
that's going to be a busy week for me because I have the first Jeep Jamboree I do of the season. I do 4 now. The first one I do is LBL at Turkey Bay. And I'll be there Thursday, Friday. I'll come home late Friday night. I'll be there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Pre-run Wednesday. We run Thursday, Friday. And then Saturday is the 22 Challenge event in downtown Jeff, the Ruck March. So I'll do that. And then Sunday's the car show. So it's a busy 5 days there. But
sure.
But if you like what you do, it's not really work. It's those are all good events, so
yeah, for sure. Yeah, because we're doing Flexing for 5-0 this weekend on Saturday. So this airs on Friday. So everybody on Saturday, hey, make it down to the Flexing for 5-0 event. We'll be there hosting the Flex Ramp. And then on the next weekend is
they're going to have a military Jeep category there.
They are. Yes,
well.
They will. They are.
Yes, so some of our groups heading over there. Sometimes we have to split up a little bit
sure.
to get to all these events.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah.
A while back we had the Vietnam Veterans Day, and that's the stuff that really makes me happy about the Jeep community, because we had on that Vietnam Veterans Day, we were doing stuff on this side of the river. You guys were doing stuff on that side of the river, and there was more than one group. Bunch of different Jeep groups and clubs and just people out there doing good things for veterans. So that was really good to see. I remember looking at that and going, man, this is a really good community. You guys are dialed into that. I'm going to try to make that flexing. I was there last year with the M38, and this year we have a birthday. One of the things we do with the military group is we'll do birthdays for a lot of the older veterans. Sadly, a lot of these World War II veterans are, they're in their hundreds. So we're losing them. Even our Vietnam vets are in their 70s and 80s. So we're doing a birthday actually across the street from my shop is an American Legion, and we're doing a birthday party for a vet named Andy Vergara. He's I believe he's a World War II vet. But we're gonna do awesome. So I'm gonna try and do that and then shoot over to the flex, and as fast as that M38 will get over there.
Happy birthday, Andy.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
So I love doing those events, because you get a that's one of the reasons, I joined the Army, joined the Marine Corps I had a heavy influence of family and people in the neighborhood that were, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine vets, that I just knew, I wanted to be like those guys and girls. So, that's, I think a lot of vets joined because of that. There was some kind of a legacy or somebody that they knew that they just connected with that. So,
that's in a sense kind of how I joined. Even though I joined late, I was doing electrical communication. Stacy and I were already married. We had 2 kids, and then I got laid off after 8 years, and then ended up moving home with her parents, and then I started working at Walmart because they were just opening up a super Walmart, and then started talking to other family members. My dad was in the Navy. All of his brothers and family were in the Navy. I got a cousin on that side that's in the Marines. My grandfather was in the Army. So I definitely had a lot of military influence, but it never had registered that that's where I'd end up. And then sure enough, we ended up joining, and then didn't think I was going to stay in after 3 years, but 21 and a half years later, I'm glad I did.
Yep. Yeah. And it's a cool story too, with Jeeps. Jeeps started off as a military tool, and they were so, they were so useful in World War II and beyond. It was part of my Army journey. The Marine Corps, we spent a lot more time on helicopters and ships, but the Jeep is so, you identify it with the military. Mm-hmm. And just like us, one day they're going to kick you out of the Army. You can't stay forever. So you end up getting out, and so you and me and our Jeeps, the Jeeps with the military history, that they've got an easier time of it. So the one that I take off road, I try not to beat it up too much, because it's 74 years old. It's paid its dues. So I try not to kill it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, apparently my Jeep was calling my name and I didn't realize it. So, well, it was all because of Stacy. Thank you, dear.
I was about to say, I think I forced your ass out the door and said, we're going. So,
yeah, that's pretty much what happened. But it's still, it kept calling me when I was looking at my Auto Trader and had like 40 different trucks I was looking at. And that one just kept saying, here, look at me, look at me, look at me. And then Stacy said, you need to stop watching YouTube videos on how much you can do to that thing and just go get it and start doing things to it.
I said, we're going to look, get in the car. Let's go.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how that went.
I mean, wasn't she just complaining last week because you buy too many Jeep parts? Or was I remembering that wrong?
You stay, mind your business, Dustin. Mind your business.
Wait a second. Don't you do the same thing, Dustin? Don't you do the same thing?
Oh, absolutely.
That is true. Dustin's the enabler.
I told
Dustin's
her
an
not
enabler.
to buy the Jeep to begin with, and then here we are.
Dustin's buying all the parts for it, and then blame Sylvia for buying the parts.
Who bought that? Who bought those parts you posted earlier, Sylvia?
My husband.
Exactly. Okay.
Well, yeah, but that's because she broke it off at Hollerwood. So we had to have that as a replacement.
exactly.
Right.
So you break stuff to get new stuff and better
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
I just
You
didn't
got all
want to
kinds of
send.
new crap the other day. You ain't broke nothing.
Yeah, did I scare you,
It's
Thomas?
called preventative
Breaking mine.
maintenance. It's
He
preventative
was
maintenance.
like, "Ooh, Sylvia broke hers. I probably go ahead and change mine."
Well, considering mine has double the mileage that yours does.
So Dustin was like, "Oh yeah, he bought chromoly. Why?" He said it. I was like, "Oh, he must have saw mine break and thought, nope, wait, we're
Well,
not doing,
gonna get
Sylvia is a
ahead
little
of the
bit heavier
action.
on the throttle than I am.
we're
so
not gonna do
there's
that in s'more
No,
to make
No.
sure we don't have no problem."
no, not at all.
It's so good.
We don't need to be calling Art or Patrick and saying we need
Please
parts
come get me.
or somebody bring us some.
Help
Well,
me.
Art's gonna be there, aren't you? You're coming to S'more
I haven't
or Plains too?
ruled myself out yet.
All
S'more is
right.
definitely on my list.
Yeah.
That is definitely on my list. And we're not doing, these trips out west. It's hard to do those, because it's, the last time I did Fordyce, we drove out there, and it's 4 days to get out there, and then you don't want to just rush through the trail. So it takes up to 2 weeks to do those trips, to do them with a little bit of justice. Now, luckily, I can kind of call that work, and it is, and it's a good experience. You really learn a lot about your Jeep on those out west trails, but it's hard to do those. So
Sure.
So we're taking a little bit. We did Daytona, that was more of a show than anything. But there's a lot of trails that it's a lifetime of trails in this country. I mean,
Yeah.
even we're really lucky to have Red River Gorge so close to us, because there's a lifetime of trails down there. Every time they keep opening up more and more, and we're really lucky to have those. But it takes, but S'more really isn't that far. It's not, it's not 4 days to get to California, and and I try to make the drive out there kind of part of it. Anybody that's been to Moab or California will tell you, they say Kansas like it beat them up, and Kansas is rough. It's long, it's flat,
Boring.
it's a long ride, but Kansas, I try to it's like the big eraser, it's a chance to clear your head. You can clear your head of all the stuff you're thinking about, and look forward to that adventure you're getting ready to go on, so it gives you a whole day to kind of erase and reset. And then by the time you hit Colorado, you start to see a little bit of, hills, and
and you can see Colorado miles and miles
away. Yeah. If you pay attention, when I ride, I use my iPad because it's easier to see, to navigate. And I use Geahr. Everybody has their favorite off-roading mapping app, and and there's no wrong one. You use what you like and what's comfortable for you. But I kind of prefer Geahr for a couple of reasons. So I'll keep Geahr up, Waze, and Google Maps, because the three of those, that's really everything that I need. And I'll get out there, in the southern Utah, and you'll be in one of these little valleys, and you'll see this mountain chain ahead of you, and I'm just using a finger to determine scale, and I'm like, that mountain range is 80 miles away. It's like right, I can see it. It's right there, but it's 80 miles away. And there's the trip. Sometimes I have just as many good stories from the ride to the Rubicon, to Moab, to Fordyce. Just as many good stories from the road, if you embrace it like that. If you look at it as that's part of the trip. It got to the point where one of the trips I did, I would see stuff along the way, and I'd be like, oh, when I get to the campground tonight or the hotel, I'm going to Google that and see what that meant. And then invariably I get to the hotel, I'm like, all right, I forgot everything I was going to Google.
Yeah, like what?
So I was like, okay, that's enough of that. So I took one of the notepads from the hotel, kept it in my Jeep, and when I saw something, I would just write it down on my console. So when I got at the end of the day, I could Google all that stuff that I saw,
Nice.
So there's a lot, especially like
the world's largest rubber band ball.
Yeah, I hit all of the, I hit all of the, me and a buddy of mine did a motorcycle trip back in the 90s, out toward the Grand Canyon. And we stopped in Texas. It was like around Shamrock, Texas. And they have the Barbed Wire Museum. We went to the U Drop In, which is a very iconic, and we're doing this trip with like paper maps and a book on Route 66. And we go to the U Drop In. It was open. We went there and had a burger, but the Barbed Wire Museum in McLean, Texas wasn't open. So fast forward, 20 something years, I go back. This time the U Drop In was closed, but the Barbed Wire Museum was open. And I actually called my buddy as I was walking in. I said, "Guess where I'm at?" I said, "I'm walking into the Barbed Wire Museum." And he was like, "Oh my God, it's full circle."
That's awesome.
Sure.
So, but that's the stuff you see from those, from those long trips is, it's the stuff I remember. There was somewhere out in the middle of the desert, there was like a tree, like the only tree in like southern Utah. And it was a bunch of shoes thrown up over it. You tie the laces together and throw the shoes up. And so I Googled that. And now when I got home, or I got to the hotel later that night, and there was this urban legend that there was a couple driving. They just got married, had their first fight, and they pulled over there. And she got out, and she's like, "Well, I'm leaving." He said, "Well, not without these shoes." And he throws the shoes, and they get up in the tree, and I guess he felt bad. They made up, and that was like the urban legend of how that started, with the shoe tree. But there's a shoe tree in southern Utah that has it's just in the middle of nowhere. You just come along, and there's this
shoestring.
So there's all kinds of. We could do a whole episode on stories from the road like that. I mean, this is.
Oh yeah.
But the point is, this is a great country, and we have a lot of resources. There's a lot of stories that people can make for their own, and you guys are doing it. Between New Jersey and California, there's a bunch of stories out there, and go find others.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, we have it on our calendar. Yeah. So
speaking of going out
2027.
2027.
Yeah.
And we've narrowed down the month, right? We're planning 2027 August.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If
it's gonna be hot as crap.
Once we start going west, it's not going to be.
So in September, when we get back, we can have the podcast of all the stories on the road, and Art can be our special guest.
That will be
Yes.
Pencil it in.
Your
Season 4, episode 200 and something.
And this was the trip you're planning for Rubicon Fordyce or Moab? This was.
Both. This is the one that.
Okay.
That you told us about, and now we're definitely doing it.
And then we said, when we were standing there, you said 2027, we're going to do it. Let's go.
Yeah. Rubicon and Fordyce is a good. Rubicon's iconic. That's a trail everybody that wants to do it should do. It's just there's harder obstacles. In our backyard. Harder single obstacles, but the Rubicon it's iconic, and it's just a long trail, and it's it just if you fall into a sense of complacency, boom, you drive into a rock. So you have to be on your toes the whole way, and it is a hard trail. It's the only trail that's rated a 10. But Fordyce is that's another. It's a little bit north of the Rubicon. It's a great. It's also iconic, but it's probably actually a little harder than the Rubicon is. Some of the obstacles, but it's a beautiful part of the country, and you have to do it. Like Thomas said, you have to do it July, August, because there's
the water,
there's snow the rest of the year. It's that area is that area of the country is where the Donner Party from history met their demise. So. You don't want to make those Donner Party mistakes,
No doubt.
So, but that's one of the things I got out there, and that's I always try to share stuff from whether it's mechanical stuff or stuff you learn from trips. But when I go out, especially if you've paid for a trail, you paid for a Jeep Jamboree, you've paid for Sierra Trek with Fordyce. You want to get out there and get what you paid for. So on a long trip like that, I always schedule breakdown days for myself. So if I have to be there on this date, I add the travel time and leave 2 days. Because if you had something minor happen, if your engine blows up on the way out, it's over, you're done. That's the end of that. And if you're going with people, you always, we would meet some of our first Rubicon trips. We would meet and talk about, where we were going to stay, how we were going to get out there, and have that hard conversation. Okay, what happens if somebody's engine blows? And that's where you have to say, okay, you're gonna have to just bow out. We'll try to fix whatever goes wrong, but if things go south majorly, then that's that. And other than that, there's not much that I can't fix on the road. I've got a lot of pictures from trips where you'll see my Jeep in the parking lot of the KOA, fixing a brake, fixing something, a drive, whatever, it happens. But having a plan is awesome. And then, I would always start looking at my Jeep, 4 months before the trip. I'd start bringing it in once a month, just going over it from head to toe. And then 2 months out, step that up to every week. And you'll find stuff that would give you a problem somewhere between here and California.
Right.
But everything is planning. If you plan, you can get anything done, and then that way you're dealing with little minor problems. But you learn a lot from those trips. How to get them. And that's what I try to share with people is schedule those breakdown days. Make sure you're going over that Jeep. Pay somebody to look at it. We'd be happy to do it here. The people that went with us, we did it for free because I'm like, well, I'd rather
screw
fix
you.
Stuff. Yeah, I'd rather fix it because there's a joke. Whenever we're wheeling together, I think our labor rate's 100. We just raised, I think it's $130 an hour here. But on the trail, it's free because if we're wheeling together and if I can fix your stuff on the trail. That doesn't mean you can show up with a box of gears and stuff like that on the trail.
Right.
But if we're wheeling together and we're a group, I'm gonna do everything I can to get you back on the trail. Just like everybody else is what we do.
Yeah, we'll all be up underneath
get out there and
on
be like,
top
I brought my new long arm kit just for this situation.
Just for this trip.
Yeah.
That big box in the back, don't mind what that says on it. That's for when we get to the trail.
That's right. Yeah, don't worry about that.
That's when we get to Widowmaker and need it.
So there's a lot of stuff you learn from those trips, of what to check, so that was one of the things we did here was we would have meetings. And then after the meeting, we would bring everybody's Jeep in and look over them and try to spot all those problems. And luckily, knock on wood, we had, very little problems, if you plan like that. The other thing is like staying in, initially some of those things, we would get hotels, like a lot of people would do, but when you start staying at campgrounds, you really appreciate the campgrounds because campground people are like us.
They're nice, yeah.
They're nice, they're nosy, which is what you want. Like I always give this example, and you can picture this if you were at a hotel somewhere. If I was at a hotel in Salina, Kansas, and I came out and I saw Sylvia's Jeep, and I didn't know Sylvia, and somebody was in there rifling through it, I would just think it was your Jeep. That was your Jeep, and you can't find the curling iron.
Right.
But you could be just ripping them off, and you don't know that, But at campgrounds, I'm gonna see your license plate. Oh, Kentucky, where are you guys from? We're gonna talk. So later on that evening, if it's not you rifling through that Jeep, I know there's a problem. So
yeah.
Once you stay at campgrounds, that's where you end up. That's people more like us.
Yeah.
And that'll definitely make the trip a lot more fun.
It does. Yeah. It does, because Max that used to own Moab, he would say that, great customers are earned around campfires. That's where you that's where you make those connections when they figure out who you are and what when we're out on the trail, it's not like some some car people are competitive, some motorcycle people are competitive because it's a competitive thing. With Jeeps, we're not really racing them. We're not doing that, so it's there is King of the Hammers, there is a racing part of our sport, but out on the trail, I don't care if I built your Jeep or not. If you're at the bottom of the hill and I'm spotting you up, but I want you to make it up that hill.
Absolutely,
and I'm gonna do everything I can to left, right you, up to the top of that thing.
And if you can't make it, worst case, you just gotta wear the pink helmet.
Yeah,
That's true.
Or use your winch.
Use your
winch. You're wearing the pink helmet.
That's a reset.
We had so much fun with that.
Until we hear a high pitch ping.
Yeah. Then I pouted and wore the pink helmet all the way home. It's okay. No, I love Jeep people as a whole, but I've told us before is that I feel like the closest Jeep people are absolutely on the trail, because they're just, no one leaves anybody behind. Nobody cares about clubs. Nobody cares if someone's Jeep is better than that. Like, no one gives a crap. Yes, there's like, we heckle each other. Absolutely. But
you and a handful of people just trying to make it over, like an obstacle together.
We'll like, kind of poke each other to, I feel like it's more like encouragement. Like, dude, you can totally do that. Quit being a weenie, get up there. But yeah, and then watching their sense of accomplishment, like that's one of my favorite things, is when someone thinks that they can't do something, and then we talk them up and then they get up it, and just you can just tell like their whole demeanor has just changed and they feel, I don't know, super empowered. I love that. And then I love that, again, even though I literally broke down and had a little pity party in my Jeep, everyone got me up, like everybody jumped together, even people that I just met that day, and some people that literally were just in some Toyotas behind us on the trail. Just trail people are the best people.
Yeah. And that's, that's part, like whatever we do even like when we used to do, years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of people doing like trail guiding in the gorge. So we'd have our customers that were just hungry for that, so we would take some trips down there, and now there's all kinds of people doing it. So that's, I felt like I had to then because nobody else was doing it. But now there's so many events down there and people trail guiding that, I've created the specialty events, like the Gladiator only ride or the TJ only ride, kind of make it interesting a little bit, but that's it. You have these people that are, and there's the Jeep world is very diverse now. You have people that don't take them off road at all, and that's
on the Gladiator ride.
Yeah, that's right. There it is. But you have people that don't, and it's their Jeep. They can do it. There's a saying with the bourbon, you drink it any damn way you want to,
Right. Exactly.
It's your Jeep. You do it, what you want to. And, I had, I'll do some car show judging at some of these Jeeps sometimes. And just because something is built maybe not the way I would do it, I'm more an off-road guy, but I can see the work. I can see the work that these guys and girls put into it, and I appreciate the work. Just because, I get stereotyped sometimes, well, it's got to be silver, but there's a reason I do that, because my Jeep isn't painted, so I can scratch the ever living piss out of it. And it's not,
I'm so happy I got a silver Jeep.
It looks silver, so I have aluminum body armor and the rest of it's silver. So it looks all one color, but, so, but there is a certain, for me, the trail people are it for me, but I do appreciate the work. A lot of that, the custom stuff kind of reminds me, when I was growing up, there was the custom van craze, and people would build these vans. And I remember a kid in high school, his dad had one of those. And this thing was, it had a theme and the carpet and the captain's chairs. And I remember one day walking home from school, and he looked over and he's like, "Hey, you want to ride home?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." I want to ride that thing, So, but that's what it kind of reminds me of. We used to go to the custom van show in Philadelphia and look at all these all these things that people had applied a theme to. They were all vans, they were all Jeeps, now.
Yeah.
But they would apply this theme to it, and there were Star Wars vans, and there was,
Yep.
and you see that now. So it kind of reminds me of that custom van craze in the
Yeah.
70s. The creativity is awesome. There's.
It's like Dolly Parton. Do you know how much it costs to look this cheap? Like, you
Actually,
know
I
how much it
saw
costs for me to
a
look this
Facebook
tacky?
video like a day or two ago, and it was somebody had this Honda van, and they named it Vans Am. And it was a full Smokey and the Bandit theme. You had the BBS gold wheels, hood
Right.
scoop, the whole thing, like black and gold, Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am, but he called it Vans Am.
That's
I
funny.
love that. Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Have you guys been to
I mean, we spend a ton of money. Why can't you decorate it or whatever to be, how you
Right.
like it? And again, like I'm like you. Sometimes I'm like, that is so ugly. But then you look at it, you're like, but it's done well for how ugly it is. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean,
like,
somebody likes it, so
yeah, somebody likes it.
Yeah,
So they probably
somebody
put
likes
prices
it.
in, so
not
whatever.
everybody's gonna like everything. So I mean,
Yeah, and that's okay. But
everybody
yeah,
has
I
different
get that.
tastes, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had.
Like, if it makes you happy, it's fine.
Yes, some of the nicest, some of the cars I remember more fondly were the ugliest cars. I was into the first cars I was into were late '60s Chrysler muscle cars. I mean, my first car was a '69 Dodge Charger, and so I was into those, and they just went fast. They didn't handle real well. It didn't really feel like you were going over speed bumps as much as you were pushing them out of the way. It was a different kind of a car, and it was big, but some of those cars were just ugly, but they were beautiful to me, and there's the Beatersville car show over in Louisville every year.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's on a holiday weekend, but I always try to get over there. You got to look at those cars. It's like the kind of the rat rod, a lot of rat rod inspired vehicles. Corey Wheat's actually having a show coming up out in I think it's in Orleans or Mitchell where they live.
Yeah, I saw that on he posted something
Welcome
on
back,
Facebook
Sylvia.
page.
Yeah, they're gonna have a version of that, so I'm gonna try to make it up there for that. But Corey built some nice stuff too, so he's got some.
He's got a pretty cool little van. I think it's a van, like a Volkswagen bus, maybe is what it is. A silver one. It's all slammed on the ground, and
he makes some cool stuff. And obviously his dad is Mark Wheat. They own Wheat's Offroad up there. He does some great stuff too. But I love stuff like that, car shows where Beatersville, like to give you like an idea, there was one that had the old style crescent wrenches that were shaped like an S almost, and it was adjustable, and a guy had one of those on the hood of this vehicle. I don't even remember what the vehicle was, but in the jaws of that adjustable wrench part of that wrench was a skull, and that was his hood ornament.
Oh, nice.
And the more you looked at this thing, the more you saw stuff.
Yeah, it's a little creative stuff like that makes it really cool.
That's not how I would have built it, but you can appreciate it.
Detail, the layout, everything that you like, basically Easter eggs that'll pop up that you're like, oh crap, that's pretty. That was very smart.
So it's if I built everybody's Jeep, they'd all be silver. So thank God we're diverse. So or green. I paint them green. For the older ones, but
that's funny.
But olive drab.
That's right.
Olive drab.
Yep. So let's see. We're about an hour 20 in.
Yep.
Time flies.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, we could sit and talk for hours. I know. And I've sat up at your shop a few times and I was like, oh crap, it's already, wow, we've been here that long. But definitely Art's got a ton of great stories. So if you ever up where exactly, where's your location at for your shop?
We're at the corner of 8th and Main in Jeffersonville, Indiana.
There you go.
And Jeffersonville actually has a cool little Jeep history. The oldest, I've got a picture of it right here actually. the oldest Jeep that we know about is a Bantam BRC 60. When they first were doing the prototypes for the Jeeps, you had Willys, Bantam, and Ford all had their prototypes. And they used those prototypes. Once they were made, they used them for stuff. So one of them actually was stationed at the quartermaster corps here in Jeffersonville, and I got this picture. That's it was actually this is now
cool.
the building that it's behind is now is Jeffersonville City Hall. So that Jeep was the oldest Jeep, and that paper I just held up was a newspaper article from the 1945, I think, or 46. And that Jeep,
awesome.
that exact Jeep is now in the Smithsonian. It's been there since 46.
Oh wow.
Wow.
It's actually on loan to it's the John Hines exhibit in Pittsburgh. But that Jeep belongs to the Smithsonian. It's the oldest living Jeep that we know about. But it was stationed here in Jeffersonville, so it was kind of cool.
Awesome.
That's really cool.
Does it still run? Do you know?
Oh yeah, I'm sure it does.
It'll start turnover.
Yeah, because there's a picture of these it was one of the commanders from Fort Knox and the commander of the quartermaster corps here in Jeffersonville driving it. So
interesting.
After that, it left Jeffersonville, went right to Washington, and then ultimately to Pittsburgh, where it is now. So Jeffersonville has a kind of a cool,
yeah, it's cool.
That's our Jeep history, but it's other than us being here. So
yeah.
I thought it would be cool to have that, like a lot of the murals they have in and around Jeffersonville and Louisville, for like the local people. I thought that would be cool to have that on the side of our building.
Like on a building, it would be. Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Our link to Jeep history. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So yeah, if you ever need any work done or just want to go hang out and talk about Jeeps and adventures and all kinds of stuff, go out there.
Or if you paint murals, hit up Art.
Paint murals.
Hit up Art.
So Art, before we go, because I may have missed it. Did we say how people can sign up? You're still taking registration for Vet Built Garage Car Show.
Yeah,
correct?
They set up a pre-registration for the event, or you could just pay the day you show up. We'll have food there. We'll have we're getting pretty good at putting these events on. So we had our chili contest that you guys came to. Back in
that was a lot of fun. It was cold, but it was a lot of fun.
It was cold, but we had chili. So
we had a lot of fun.
That's right.
So we're getting better at putting on these events, and a bunch of military vets. So we can make something out of nothing. So
pretty much.
We've got a pretty good plan for this. So it should be a pretty good day. Hopefully the weather cooperates with us. We had, years ago, we had a Jeep event there before I had this shop. Back on the same lot, and it was a rainy day. Started off as a rainy day. We had like a little Jeep swap meet there, and nobody really showed up because it was raining in the morning, and the rain kind of let off about mid-afternoon. People came out, and I owned a towing company at the time, so I took one of the cars and drug it out, flattened the tires, and we started driving over it. Well, that turned into an event. I didn't think people would get that much of a kick of driving over cars, but they did. It was absolutely wonderful. So I can't promise that again, but we
they signed me up. Dustin will never let me drive over anybody's car.
It was like a Ford Taurus or something like that, but it was
your insurance will go up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's already sky high. So how much higher can it go?
Don't say that.
But we'll have the flex ramp out there. We'll have a lot of cool cars to look at. We'll have food. So it should be a good event. Hopefully, God willing, the weather cooperates, and we'll have a great day.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. So we have. So I'll post the link to pre-register as well as to the Facebook link in the description from this video. This podcast, and then but we got Flexing for 5-0 this Saturday. Then we have the Voodoo Barricade event on the following Saturday, and then Vet Built their car show on that following Sunday. So
and then that following weekend we're all going to S'more. So anybody that is joining us there, make sure you mark that you're going to our event, so that way
Yep.
we know to look for you.
So yeah, I'll say the dates though. The 10th is the 10th of May is the Flexing for 50. The 17th is Louisville Voodoo's Jeep Club's Barricade Go Topless event. And then on the 18th of May is Vet Built's Jeep Show. And then the 22nd through the 26th is S'more.
Yep.
Yep.
So there we have it. Well, thank you, Art, for coming out and hanging with us for a little bit, and then telling us a little bit about yourself and all the cool, fun stuff that you did. Because I know you got tons of stories, and I love hearing them.
I know we have to have you back on to tell just stories about some of your wheeling adventures, because I love listening to those.
For
Yeah,
sure.
Living vicariously through your events.
And it's, and I tell people, we kind of touched on this before we started, that sometimes people come in here and we get talking about stuff, and it takes up a lot of the time. The what ifs. What if I did this lift and tires? What if I did this? And what if I did that? And I'll give you my honest opinion. I don't care. We stay busy enough. So whether you buy it from me or not, we'll shoot you straight on what's a good, because you want to do this. We talked about it over and over again. These Jeep parts can get expensive, so it's a good idea to have your end goal in mind, so you don't vary too much on that budget. It sucks having to redo stuff because your vision changed, or you didn't know what your vision was. Yeah. So whether it's at one of these events or here at the shop, stop by. We'll try to shoot you straight on whether it's how high to go on lift, what gear ratio, what brand of lift. And we're lucky here. We have a lot of really good shops. So if you want my advice and you want to go to Wheats or go see Jeremy Frederick at Upright or Patrick Fogel or I always forget their name. The new is a stuff for trucks. Yeah, V3. I can't forget V3. Yeah, V3. We have a lot of toys for trucks. That's what it is. There's a lot of there's a lot of really good shops up the road in Cincinnati. There's a ton of shops up there. So there's a lot of really good shops in our area. I can't do them all. Jeremy can't do them all. Mark can't do them all. Patrick can't do them all. We live here together, and so we're lucky here. You have a lot of really good shops, a lot of really good options. Like we talked about, everybody has a different feel for their shop and a vision, and find out which guy or girl is gonna get you where you need to go. And we'll all shoot you straight. So everybody has their stuff that it's like the iPhone and Android thing, man. It's you find out where you fit, and
not iPhone is the right answer, by the way. Just gonna throw that out there.
Shut up, Dustin.
I agree with you, Dustin.
100%.
I'm an iPhone user.
Oh, yeah.
Android, baby.
Android.
Right,
yeah, get in where you fit in. That is another thing I respect about all you shop owners is that I feel like every one of the ones that you've mentioned always will recommend all the other ones that you've mentioned. Like if I'm not the right fit for you, I ask any of these guys, and it's never like, oh, only go to me because everyone else doesn't know what they're talking about. All of you guys always support each other. I think that's, again, super awesome.
Yeah, my top four, and in not any order, is Art at Geahr Offroad, Patrick Fogel at PDF Diesel and Offroad, Jeremy Frederick at Upright, and Wheats Offroad.
Yep.
Those are the top four that I trust with my vehicle. If I need to
and that we have good relationships with, on top. I hear lots of good stuff about V3. I just don't know them.
Yeah.
They're great. They've been around for a while. There's some good there's some good people there. So they're but again, you can't go wrong. There's a lot of good, we wheel with a lot of these people, and they're great people to wheel with. They're great people to help you build your Jeep. Everybody has their own little specialty, and their spin that they're going to put on it. So you just find the one that fits into you and roll with them. And you can shop around a little bit too. You can try us, try them, see what you like about each one, and all of them. I can say for sure that, we're not perfect. We make mistakes. We all do, but every one of these shops in our area, if you have a problem, you take it back to they're going to fix it. They're going to take care of it.
100%.
So or if there's something that you thought was going to turn out a different way, give them a call. I mean, we want you to leave happy and enjoy your Jeep, and so that's what we're shooting for. So that's always the goal, is to get you down the road happy. And trust me, I don't want to fix you on the trail. So I'd rather
Dustin knows from
or
experience.
avoid them on the trail.
That's
You want to make sure they're happy. That way they want to wheel and be happy instead of avoiding on the trail.
One of the, I can wrap it up with this. We had a lady. She doesn't have a Jeep anymore, but she had she was having trouble, a couple of the trips we've been on, and she couldn't make it up a hill. And I made some recommendations to her. And the next time she went out wheeling, I happened to be spotting on one of the hills, and we had people with way more capable Jeeps than she had struggling to get up this hill. So I get on the radio and I tell her what to do, and she comes up and one-shotted it all the way to the top with less equipment than these other people had. And she got up to the top. I walked over to her Jeep and I said, how's them tires working out for you? And she's like, she was so excited, and that's a win. That's a win. Yeah. To see that, it's, that's the end result of a recommendation. And but I was happy for her. I wanted her to have that win, and she did. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thanks again, Art, for hanging out with us.
Me,
yeah, we appreciate it. We'll definitely have you on again some other time.
We'll do campfire stories the next one.
Oh, yeah, that'll be awesome.
Sounds fun.
Yes.
For sure. And definitely
we can all have backgrounds. We can all have fun campfire backgrounds.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But yeah, we're definitely all looking forward to 2027 for sure.
Yes.
It's gonna be great. I love
my calendar.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but
on
all
my
right,
calendar.
Everybody out there, thanks again, and we'll see y'all next time. Later.
Right.
Yeah.
Same time, same place.